Great day, learners. It's me again, Miss Bethel. So we're almost done discussing computation of sample statistics. And then after the discussion part, I'll be sharing another learning video which talks about problem sets. So let's talk about estimates of population parameters. So we are trying to refer this estimates of population parameters as sample statistics. Or simply, if we're going to describe sample statistic, okay, without the S. So let's start with the mean. So mean is the common average that we know. So we have this notation, the X bar. It's actually the sum of the data values divided by the number of the values, or simply saying the summation of the variable X, let's say X because we use here X again po, variable lang po ito, dami variables. So you could use summation of Y, summation of Z, or summation of any other letter found in the alphabet over the sample size, again, small letter n because we are trying to refer to the sample size or the number of the data values in the sample or statistic. Variance is S squared. So it's simply the average squared deviation around the mean. So to compute for this, sample variance is equal to summation of x squared minus summation of x, then square this over the number of samples. So let's try to associate this with your summation notation. This is sum of squares or square of a sum? Sum of square or square of a sum? That's your assignment because I've already discussed those things to you. By now, you should be able to identify the difference between the two. Then overall, we're going to divide this to n minus 1 or the degrees of freedom. In your lecture, it has been explained to you kung bakit hindi lang siya over n, kung bakit dapat pa natin siyang bawasan ng 1 or to be subtracted by 1. Another way of getting the variance is this. Okay, so variance S squared is equals to the summation of x, the value of x minus the mean, square those overall n minus 1. Can x was the observation in the data. This is the mean divided by the number of data values subtracted by 1. Please be careful po in trying to be familiar with the different formulas. Then S, or simply the standard deviation, is the square root of the variance. So again, this is the variance. After getting the variance or after knowing the value of the variance, we simply need to have the square root. So the standard deviation of the sample is used to measure the variation of the population. For example, this is the entire population. Try to imagine na buo pa po ito. Manonotice natin sa population, ang dami-dami ng kaibahan. Okay? Meron po tayong madaming variation. So, ang purpose po natin is kunin lang po yung sample standard deviation. Kasi kukunin lang natin ang measure ng variation. So, S here, because this is for the sample standard deviation. While if we're going to get, I know it's hard, it's challenging, it's difficult, and it's unknowable, okay, to really have an accurate estimate. So, the population standard deviation is denoted by this sigma, okay? So, the standard deviation is actually a number used to tell how measurements for a group are spread out from the average or the mean or the expected value. A low standard deviation means that most of the numbers are close to the average or close to the mean. While a high standard deviation means that the numbers are more spread out. So example, this is the mean. And these are the values of the weight of the apples. Okay? So, kung mas malapit siya dito, mas maliit yung standard deviation niya. Pero kung mas malayo siya sa mean, mas malaki yung standard deviation niya. Kasi nga, yung standard deviation, siya yung nagsasabi kung gaano po close or gaano kalayo yung ating measurements from the average or from the mean. Again po, may relasyon po sa standard deviation at saka yung ating mean. How about the CVOO? This CV is very useful in your thesis. Hashtag thesis. So CV is coefficient of variation. It is a measure of the relative reliability of the results of the test. Okay, so to compute for the CV, we need to use this equation. So it's the square root of variance or simply, di ba, standard deviation over the mean multiplied by 100. So kung hindi po given yung standard deviation at given naman po yung ating variance, gamitin po natin ito. Let's just get the square root of the variance. Pero pagka hindi given yung variance, tapos given naman yung standard deviation, so simply divide the standard deviation to the mean times 100 to get the percentage of the coefficient of variation. And then the standard error, so we have the summation, is equal to the standard deviation over the square root of the sample size. Okay? So now, our favorite, the confidence interval. Napaka-arte, ano? So a confidence interval is how much uncertainty there is with any particular statistic. Again po, sample po tayo So confidence intervals are often used with a margin of error or simply E. It tells us how confident we can be that the results from a poll or survey reflect what we would expect to find if it were possible to survey the entire population. So para bagang, pagka sinabing confidence interval, ito yung confidence natin na, okay, kung kinuha or ginamit ko yung buong population, ganito yung range or interval na masasabi ko na, okay, tama yung resulta ko. Tama yung result ng poll or result ng survey. Kunwari, ito yung entire population represented by the dots inside the square. Population ng ano? Ng mga manok. Okay, example lang po manok po yan. So, the chicken weight worldwide, okay, worldwide, ito po yung mundo, okay, yung box po, ito po yung earth, yung mga dots po, yun po yung mga manok. So, we are going to get the mean of the chicken weight. Kaso, napakahirap po pagka sanlibutan, mag-a-identify tayo kung saan ba sa mga lugar ang may mga manok, sino yung nag-aalaga ng manok, anong edad ng manok, anong klase ng manok. It's unknowable. That's why this is in question mark. Kasi nga, it's almost impossible. Yeah, it's impossible to get the mean of the parameter or the entire population. So what we're going to do is to draw samples. Kunwari, I did one sampling. Then, I obtained 245 chicken and then weigh each chicken and get the sample mean, which is 4.2 pounds. And then I did another sampling again. I obtained 356 manok. Tinimbang ko sila isa-isa, tapos nalaman ko na mean nila ay 5.3 pounds. Dapat po may bar ito Tapos ang huli kong ginawang sampling kasi nga, ang dami ko ng manok, nangangamoy itim na ako. Chokes lang. So 30 na lang na manok ang ginamit ko. So yung mean ng 30 na manok ay 3.2 pounds. Ngayon po, ito po yung ating gagawin. So, collecting samples in the populations for us to have an estimate of the true value of mean value. Ito po ang pagbabasihan natin para masabi natin na, okay, ito probably ang true value ng mean with a specific confidence level. Now, we can actually find the value of mean by just knowing the range of value wherein we can actually hit the value of the mean. So it's just like this. When we know the lower limit and the upper limit, we are sure enough na nasa range na ito, pwede nating ilagay kung ano ba talaga yung exact value ng ating population mean. So, malapit yung mga values po. Ito nga, ito ay isang value, another value. Nasa mga values po na ito, ang probably ma-hit natin kung ano ba yung totoo o accurate value ng mean. Pero agad, hindi natin siya ma-detect. Ano? Ang gagawin natin, magbibigay lang tayo ng confidence interval. Yun po yung ibig sabihin ng confidence interval. Meron po tayong interval, meron po tayong range, para matukoy natin na okay, nasa range na ito, makikita natin ang accurate value ng mean. Pero as to the point kung ano ba talaga yung accurate value ng mean ng population, again, hindi po natin matukoy kasi hindi po tayo nagsagawa ng survey. Okay? Sa buong population ng manok sa buong mundo or sa planetang Earth, o 'di ba? Sa planetang Earth. So confidence levels are expressed as a percentage. Ngayon naman, kailangan nating maintindihan what's the difference between confidence interval at saka confidence level. Okay, para hindi po tayo medyo maguluhan. Para hindi po tayo ma-confuse. So confidence levels are expressed as a percentage. For example, 95% confidence level. It simply means that you should repeat an experiment or survey over and over again. 95% of the time, your results will match the results that you obtain from a population. In other words, your statistics would be sound. So, yun po yung confidence level. Pagka sinabing 99% confidence level, okay, kahit gumawa ka pa ng survey for the 100 times or for the 1,000 times or even for 1 million times, confident ka na 99% it would give you the same results all over again. Yun yung confidence level. Meanwhile, yung confidence interval are your results and they are actually numbers. For example, you survey a group of pet owners to see how many cans of dog food they purchase a year. You test your statistic at 99% confidence level and get a confidence interval of 200 to 300. That means you think they buy between 200 to 300 cans a year. Yun yung ating confidence interval. We are super confident that 99% of our results are statistically sound. So, ayun po, pagka sinabing level, yun po yung 95, 99, yung mga percentages. Pagka sinabing interval, we are actually trying to refer to the figures or the numbers, the lower limit and the upper limit. So, ito po yung ating confidence interval. Having 95%, kasi nga po, 95 confidence level, our confidence interval consists of a lower limit and an upper limit. For this case, it's 0.025. This should be negative and this one is a positive. Ayun po. So, another illustration para po talaga mag-gets natin ng todo. Okay, pagka-point estimate po, ito po. Standard deviation, variance, or sample variance, proportion, at saka mean ng sample. Meron pong isang value. Kaya point estimate. Yung interval estimate naman, range po siya. Meron po siyang LCL or lower confidence limit at UCL or upper confidence limit. Ito po ay ang width ng ating confidence interval. Dissecting confidence interval, yun po yun. Now, para mas ma-appreciate natin, let me give you some real-life examples of confidence interval. So, for example, a 2008 Gallup survey found that TV ownership may be good for well-being. So, pagka may TV, mas okay, yun yung sabi. The results from the poll stated that the confidence level was 95% plus minus negative 3. Okay? Not plus minus 3. Okay? Hindi po siya negative 3. Which means that if Gallup repeated the poll over and over using the same techniques, okay, 95% of the time, di ba nabubulol po ako, pasensya na po. The results would fall within the published results. The 95% confidence level and the plus minus 3 is called the margin of error. Kasi nga po, interval lang po siya. Estimate po natin siya. We need to allot a margin of error for us to know that confidence interval. So, karaniwan pong nangyayari at the bottom of the article, kung ito po ay published, makikita po natin yung confidence interval. Tapos, meron din pong mga bar graphs. So, for this poll, for the European data, one can say that with 95% confidence, the true population for well-being among those without TVs is between 4.88 and 5.26. The confidence interval, therefore, is 4.88 and 5.26 with 95% confidence level. So the US, another example is the US Census Bureau routinely uses confidence levels of 90% in their surveys. One survey of the population, rather, of the number of people in poverty in 1995 stated a confidence level of 90% for the statistics. The number of people in poverty in the United States is 35,534,124 to 37,315,094. That means that if the Census Bureau repeated the survey using the same techniques, again ha, dapat same yung protocol or same yung techniques para wala pong bias. 90% rather of the time, the results would fall between 35,534,124 up to 37,315,094 people in poverty. So the figure now or the numbers now is what we refer to as the confidence interval. So let's explain naman the 95% confidence interval. So the terms confidence level and confidence interval are often confused. Ano naman po itong 95% confidence level? It simply means that if we're going to repeat the survey or experiment, 95% of the time, the data would be the same or the results would be the same from using the entire population. So sometimes, you just can't survey everyone because of the time or the cost, di ba? Ang mahal pagka entire population. So think na lang kung kunwari telephone survey, ang mahal-mahal ng mababayaran mo. Therefore, you take a sample of the population and having a 95% confidence level means that you're almost certain your results are the same if you had surveyed everyone. So, kunwari, kumuha ka na ng sample, so sure ka na 95% ng result ng na ginamit mong sample ay magiging same kung ang entire population yung ginamit mo. Yun yung ibig sabihin ng confidence level. Okay? So, a confidence interval naman na 95% gives us a very specific set of numbers for the confidence level. So, they come in pair, si confidence interval at saka si confidence level. So, suppose you were surveying a local school to see what the students' state test scores are. You set a 95% confidence level and find that 95% confidence interval is 780 up to 900. That means if you repeated this over and over again, 95% of the time, the scores would just fall at the confidence interval 780 and 900. So the image at the left side, at my left side, baka hindi left side po ito sa inyo, shows a 95% confidence interval on a normal distribution graph. The red tails po, ito po, are the remaining 5%. Itong tail na ito po yung tail ito red. Red po is sila, pero ito lang po yung tail, sa 5%. Each tail is 2.5, 2.5. So you don't have to draw a graph when you're working with confidence intervals, but it can help you visualize exactly what you're doing. So kaya po sinabi ko kanina na mas madali sa atin na mag-drawing kahit hindi naman po talaga required. Especially kung mag-hypothesis testing tayo. Kasi dapat nating malaman kung ang shaded region ba ang part ng ating i-reject or i-accept yung ating null or will fail to accept or we will fail to reject. Po. So if your results fall into the red region, then that's outside of the 95% confidence level. So you are going to decide if you're going to, for example, hypothesis testing, reject or accept the null hypothesis. If you have a small sample or if you don't know the population standard deviation, which is the reality in most real-life scenarios, then you'll find the 95% confidence interval with a t distribution. Okay, so later on, we would also try to know ano ba yung T distribution. So to compute for the confidence interval, we need to use this equation. Mean plus minus T times standard error. Or mean plus minus T times S over square root of N. Kasi ito po ay itong buong ito. Ito po yung pag-compute ng standard error. Or itong buong ito po, this is our margin of error. So T times standard of error is what we call the margin of error. So another formula is mean plus minus the margin of error. Plus minus po kasi it implies the upper for the plus and lower for the minus. T alpha po, ito po dapat ay T alpha, tabular value at a specific level of significance. Kunwari po, 0.05 pagka 95% at saka 0.01 pagka 99% confidence interval. Note po that T alpha is obtained from the distribution of T probability table with a degrees of freedom. So, kailangan din po natin malaman kung paano ba gamitin yung ating T table. At saka, kailangan natin malaman yung ating DF. Yung DF po, pag-compute ng DF, sample size which is N minus 1. So, kung 10 po ang ating sample size, 10 minus 1 is equals to 9. Using a specific alpha level of significance, whether it's 0.05 or 0.01 or any other number. But the most common po is 0.05 at saka 0.01. Yung margin of error naman po ay E. Ito po. To compute for the margin of error, it's T alpha times standard of error. Ito po yung formula na ito. Kaya po, X plus minus E. To compute for the standard of error, it's S over square root of N. Kaya po, meron po tayo ditong standard of error. Bali, expanded form lang po ito. So, the E or the margin of error, again po, kailangan po tayo mag-set ng E, is the magnitude of error allowed in the observation of the values. Okay, it's mathematically expressed as T alpha times standard of error. So, ito po, the value of T depends on the sample size. And the chosen level of significance, the bigger our T value, the bigger our confidence interval. So, meron po silang relationship. Ano po ba yung relationship nila? Inverse or directly proportional? Yes, it's directly proportional. So, they are directly proportional. So, let me share to you the common T value for a specific sample size. So, 10, 15, 20, 30, at saka 100. Pero take note po hindi po ito yung pagbabasihan sa ating T distribution. Always po itong minus 1. Ito po ang value pagka may na-DF na po siya. At 95%, 1.833 pagka 10 po yung ating sample size. Kasi nga po, di ba, sinabi ko kanina, let me repeat, the value of T depends on the sample size. Kasi kailangan natin kunin yung degrees of freedom. Degrees of freedom is N minus 1. The bigger the T, the bigger the confidence interval. So, I want you to remember po, ito po ang mga common na T value for specific sample size. So, please familiarize all of this. Hindi ko na po sila isa-isahin. Okay? Tapos, always ko din pong na-mention na pagka-confidence interval, meron dapat lower at upper limit. So, to compute for the lower limit of the confidence interval, denoted as L sub 1. So, simple. Mean minus T alpha times standard of error or mean minus margin of error. For the upper limit, kasi positive, diba? So, plus. So, L sub 2, mean plus T alpha standard of error or mean plus margin of error. For hypothesis testing naman po, for a population mean, especially when the population variance and the population standard deviation are known, this is the equation. So, Z is equal to mean minus the hypothesis of the given mean to be tested. So, in some other literatures, you would find M naught or M sub 0 or M sub O that refers to the, what? The null hypothesis na mean over the standard deviation of the population divided by the square root of the sample size. So, this is actually for Z. For T naman, okay, for the tested statistic, which is T, so hypothesis testing for a population mean, when the population standard deviation is not known. Hence, we are going to use the sample standard deviation. So to solve for this, we need to subtract the hypothesis of the given mean to be tested from the mean divided by the sample standard deviation over the square root of the sample size. So that ends, but we will be having another learning video that talks about the different problem sets pertaining to computation of sample statistics. So I'll leave you with this quote: take chances, make mistakes, and that's how you will actually grow. Just like me, I also commit mistakes, but the good thing is that you are acknowledging that you commit mistakes, because again, we are all a work in progress, and try to find avenue for us not to repeat the same mistakes again. So for your upcoming midterm exams, make sure to have at least 95% confidence level and not more than 5% margin of error. So thank you so much.